Okay. So first of all, to begin with, I got kind of a little away from listening to Acharya so much, and I don't know, just my cycle that comes and goes. But I am getting back. I think I traveled, and whenever I travel long distance or something, it just that it takes me a while to come back to my rhythm.
Yeah,
But
I understand that.
I don't know if that happens with everybody, but with me, I'm kind of seeing that happening. But it is okay. I mean, that is also part of kind of learning, that there's learning opportunity. So so that is that. So I think we were at 43. So if you like, we can talk about 43 and then move on to 40, the new chapter.
I can read that.
Okay. Thus, Arjuna, knowing the self, which is higher than the intellect, and subduing the mind by reason, kill this enemy in the form of desire that is hard to overcome. Thus, Arjuna, knowing the self, which is higher than intellect, and subduing the mind by reason, kill this enemy in the form of desire that is hard to overcome.
Do you recall what we talked about?
Um, I think 42 basically gives the background. The senses are said to be greater than the body, but greater than the senses in the mind.
Is the mind.
Greater than the. Did you say something?
But greater than the senses is the mind, not in the mind.
Oh, but greater than the senses is the mind. Greater than the mind is the intellect. And what is greater than intellect is he, the self. So this enemy is basically ego, correct? The seat of senses,
Yeah, you can say ego or you can say mind.
mind. Today I was listening to Osho discourse on Buddha, and he was saying that sansar is, suppose you are walking through a huge collection of people, a lot of people are there and you're walking through, and then after a while somebody from that crowd comes in front of you and asks you, did you see him or her? And you don't recollect because your internally that selection mechanism was not working. It is that internal selection mechanism which is sansar. That itself is sansar. So when the desire goes to consume something, the sansar goes. And when the sansar goes, God comes. It is the same thing said in two ways. But the desire cannot go by just by saying to yourself that I have no desire, because desire still remains. The desire can only go through experience. That is what he said. He said that it is like ocean. Wherever you taste the water, you find it
Okay.
salty. Tikht, that is the word he used. Tikht, like not tasty. So taste you taste sansar from everywhere and you find that it is not what you thought. And that thing, that asha that you make, that hope that you have, that this will satisfy me, this will bring me happiness, that hope is that you have to become kind of hopeless. That hope has to go away. I am not able to articulate properly, but that
Lina,
was the
Lina, are you able to grasp anything? Anisa, are you?
I mean, yes, I can kind of see where you're coming from, Vikram. I mean, it is, I mean, I had to, that's why I was kind of thinking, like, I have to reread these because I'm like, I'm not too sure, but
So
yeah.
when the verses talk about sansar, or in the discourses, if you hear the word sansar, sansar actually literally meaning sansar is physical world. Physical world is sansar. But when like how Vikramji has explained, sansar explained by Osho, how he explained it, our relationship with the world. He's not talking about the physical world. He's talking about our relationship with the world. So the sansar, the world exists. I mean, there are so many things in the world exist. But what is our relationship with a particular object in the world, that defines our sansar? See, China exists, Pakistan exists, there are Israel, there are so many countries exist. But we do not even care about, because we are not related with that. Even though they exist in the same world, but they do not exist for us. Can you relate to that? So what exists for us is our own world, like what we are related to. So for you, maybe Vikramji exist, or maybe people from your family exist, your house, your car, your job, those things, that makes your sansar, not the rest of the thing. Although we are living in the same world, you are not related to my house. So my house does not it should not appear in your world. Although it is a part of the same world, but it is not a part of your world. So that is what he's saying. So he's saying that more what we have, these relationship with the objects, the bigger will be our sansar. And if you have figured out that less and less kind of like you are worried about these things, like there are very less number of things which you are worried about, that will minimize your sansar. So that is what he's talking about, the desires. So the desires, the hopes. So we have some desires, and the desires are related to the objects in our own world, not the big world we are talking about. We are talking about our own world. Everybody has their own personal world.
Like our own microcosm within the larger world.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you just search the dictionary meaning of sansar, you will find, oh, it's a physical world. So then you will be lost, because he's not talking about the physical world. He is talking about that microcosm that he's talking about. So he's saying that when those desires, and Vikramji, what he's saying that, oh, you have to get to the point of desirelessness. And how do you come to the point of desirelessness? That he's given an example of the ocean. Ocean, you take the sample of water from any corner of the ocean, it will always taste salty. Same goes with the desires. We are living in the pool of, or like ocean of desires. So you, and that he's saying that, okay, the wisdom comes by the experience. So now with the experience, you have come to the point, okay, all right, what these desires have actually given me. Where did the desire probably had satisfied me some aspect within me, but did it really left me content? So when you go deeply into this, you get to the point, okay, no matter which desire gets fulfilled, I am never fulfilled. So the point of going by the route of desires is never going to give me or get me that completion. So when you come to that understanding, automatically so many trivial desires, they just disappear. They just disappear. They just start falling off. And that is the state of desirelessness, that you are not very much interested in, like, they will be, the mind will be like putting some desires, and then there will be a mechanism inside, it will just filter it out. It will just say, okay, what is the point? Even if I get it, what I'm getting it. So that's how you come out of the ocean of desires. That's what he is talking about.
I think Vikram has that screen background just to prove his point because of the ocean.
Yeah. Anisa, you have any question? Yeah.
No.
So kill this enemy in the form of desire. So technically, two things come to mind, which probably we can bring more clarity. One is that Acharya also said something about this, that I don't recall in which context he was saying, but it was Acharya saying that if you think about yourself, your entire world is composed of words and thoughts. Or maybe I may have not heard him correctly, so I admit. But what I recall is this: try to think of yourself without words, or without images, or without your this, like, this connection. So you see something and it is, a wall is never a wall for you, it is something for you, it is my wall. And then he goes on to say, okay, what color is this? So there can be a social truth. Okay, orange is better than green, whatever. Then is this wall? Then I will try to recollect which context he was saying, but he was saying a wall is never a wall for you.
There is some meaning.
There is,
There
exactly.
is some
And that
meaning behind
meaning,
it. Yeah.
that meaning, tidbits of meanings of so many things that you interpret, that creates your ego, that creates you, that creates the mind. And all those meanings are in words. He said words and images. So if you remove words and images, your name is also a word for you, right? Which you have chosen to believe in. So he said, if you remove those, then where are you? So he was saying in that some context. I think it is kind of important here, because the mind exists in the form of desire, and that desire, aham vritti, is there. Desire as a tendency is there. But this tendency is always in the form of projections, and projections come based upon the meanings, things you assign to and believe in.
So these are attachments.
And you get attached to, yes.
Okay.
So essentially, you are actually creating the web yourself. The entire web is created by you. There is a beautiful woman who goes, and immediately you have some imagination or something happens in the germ form, man or woman, whoever. And then that eventually becomes desire.
Mm.
Now, who asked you to create that connection, so-called, or that so-called? Nobody. It was a choice, right?
No, the thing is, it is so automated, Vikramji. It is happening on its own. And then
Yes.
since we have this maybe a feeling or belief that it is happening inside me, so it must belongs to me.
Oh.
That's how we get trapped in, because it is happening and you are the only one who can sense it. I cannot sense what is happening inside you, inside your
Right.
brain. So that is why the mind kind of feels that, okay, it is okay, because probably I am thinking this and this is my desire.
Right.
That's how mind gets attached to that desire without evaluating it further, that how this is all happening. Is it happening autonomously.
Oh.
Those things do not occur without a knowledge. Without any understanding, those thoughts will not come. And mind is so shrewd, so cunning, it would not let you have those kind of thoughts. You will only get the thoughts, and all the mechanism inside is to perpetuate the desires. Nothing will come automatically to break those desires. It will not come.
So you said something very profound, and I'm overwhelmed, but I'm trying to again articulate. So what you are saying is basically this reaction that we have to opposite sex, for example, or to delicious food or whatever we kind of classify as
right,
rag or dvesh, like, something that you like or dislike. This like and dislike game is actually happening in Prakriti, and you are only an observer at the end of it.
You are just an observer, but you don't believe, and you are programmed to believe that they are happening for you and inside you.
So thoughts are not yours. Thoughts is just a mechanism working in Prakriti. That's it.
It depends upon the environment you choose to be in. You will get certain kind of thoughts. See, I used to have a house in India. I don't have any thoughts because that house does not belong to me anymore. So I don't have the thoughts for that house, because that house is not a part of my world today. But I used to have a lot of thoughts when I was in India, living there. I used to think about the paint. I used to think about the bathroom. I used to think about the shower not working. All kind of problems. Those problems were my problems. But those problems do not exist for me today, because they are not, that house is not a part of my world. If that house somehow I was collecting the rent money or something like that, probably it could have been my headache today also. But it is not. So it is just the relationship, the objects and the relationship what we have, those things only occupy our mind. And these thoughts are just totally based on the kind of environment you are in and the kind of stuff you are exposed to. So you may be reading lot of romantic novels, right? So you could you will find that your now thoughts are conditioned to go in the Shakespearean era or something like that, and those kind of things have started popping, because that is what you are feeding your mind. Somebody is reading a lot of news about what is happening in Israel, or what is happening in Saudi Arabia. So they will have thoughts automatically. They will start having thoughts. If you are not paying attention to those news, those thoughts will not be a part of your world. They will not just jump like that. So that is why it is very important what we choose to give our mind. That only occupies your thought process. If you just give random things to the mind, then random things will come to your mind. Random things will come. Something you are just out of curiosity, because there are so many things on YouTube, they keep popping up. You are not even sure why you want to look at it, but you just click on it, and then you get interested in it, and then you feel like, oh yeah. So that thought, maybe after 2 days, suddenly you will have that thought, oh, because you chose to watch that video. So it is, everything is done by us. We create it, and then the thoughts will come on its own. But initiator are us. And sometimes unwelcoming guests in the form of thoughts, they appear. which we intentionally we were trying to avoid, but somehow we got exposed to those kind of stuff, and now they are a part of our thought process, and we don't know how to get rid of them. So we don't know. I mean, it's like a matchstick. Now you have initiated the fire. You don't know how to extinguish it. The fire is just moving, and it is going to blast. You just don't know. You have just started it. So that's why the yogis, the saints, the knowers, or the wise ones, they choose what to feed to the mind. They would not give mind, because they know the habits of the mind, that what mind will do. It will just keep on chewing those things, and then ultimately it will trouble itself, and that will disturb your inside peace. So they choose not to give mind, because mind is just a monkey mind. It just likes colorful objects, and it likes to play with them. It's just like a small child. So you have to be very careful what you're giving your mind. And we are not very conscious people actually. So we don't really pay attention what we are giving, what kind of stuff we are giving to the mind. Because you don't know what your mind will make out. It is not going to make a lemonade out of lemon. It will make something very bad, which will be very injurious to your health. Any further contemplation on that, or any further reflection?
I was just thinking that, like the microcosm, if we are indeed living in a matrix type of world, then we create our own little matrices, I guess, for our consumption and our attachment, and of course our suffering. So now that we were talking about this, I'm thinking, what am I actually feeding my mind? And I do try to keep it, informative, but again, that's very subjective, I suppose. But yeah, I sometimes find myself thinking, well, this is a waste of my time. This is not going to add anything to XYZ, that kind of thing. So I mean, I do try to, have some sort of criteria of, is this going to improve anything? Is this going to solve anything? Is this going to better me in any way, as opposed to just wasting my time or wasting other people's time, maybe?
Yeah, because you have to be very careful in that sense, because the lot of information, the stuff what we try to feed our mind with, in the form of information, in the name of information, what actually happens is it just becomes a part of the cerebral process. It doesn't do any good. Probably most of the times it actually end up causing a headache. It ends up giving us some kind of anxieties, panic attacks, all kind of things. And we do not realize that because we are so interested in the things which we have no power on, and we probably may not be able to touch them, or so we do not really have an internal mechanism to flush out these unnecessary garbage once we are done with it. So before putting that internal mechanism of flushing out, if we keep feeding mind all this extra stuff, and mind doesn't know what to do with it, and ultimately it already knows that it is not going to do anything about that, unless it's not going to do anything about those things other than chewing over them, other than making them a cerebral process. So this is actually the seeds of nightmares. You're making yourself extremely agitated. And you are choosing to, you don't even know, unconsciously you are choosing. So you have to be very careful in that sense. Because I have gone through all this. I have seen this all. I used to drive myself crazy about so many problems in the world, and which I would not be doing much about it. But I will talk and I will screw up the heads of the other people also.
I guess what you're saying is to become more cognizant, aware,
Aware, yeah.
deliberate curators of our own stuff,
Right.
whatever we're consuming. Otherwise, yeah, it would possibly lead to what you're talking about.
I was talking to PAF members, and I'm constantly in touch with them. So I saw that like how informative they are. They know so much of stuff, what is happening in the world. And I used to wonder how it is not bothering them. Like they were like, whatever is possible to be done, they are already doing it. So they don't really have a regret that they are not doing anything about it. And it is a part of their job also to be well informed about almost everything. Like so many things they are aware of. There will be hardly anything which, I mean, like what is happening in the mainstream world, they may not be aware. I mean, small things sometimes. And I was like, how these people are so in like an encyclopedia and they are still not stressed, or they don't really have. So they have that internal mechanism. At the same time, they are so busy. Their lives are so busy that they don't really waste time in uh, getting the stuff like cerebral. The stuff doesn't become cerebral to it. It is just an information. It just keeps one corner of their brain. It just occupies one corner of their brain, and whenever needed, that information will just come out. But they don't chew over those facts. Whatever can be done, they are already doing it. So they don't even have regrets that they are not doing something. Their mind does not torture them. Their mind does not trouble them. But people like us, who have a lot of time on our side, and we are not like, apart from our jobs, we are not extremely devoted or dedicated to any higher purpose or any higher cause. Our mind will end up chewing those things that is just given, and it will only cause a nightmare and agitation to us. It is not going to do anything good. So we have to have that internal mechanism to flush out these things. Okay, once we are done with it, we just be a little shameless that, okay, all right, I am a shameless person, I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm just like that. I'm a shameless person. You will have to tell yourself, okay, either you do that, or um, just uh, don't bother about it.
So either you think about it, and then if it occupies a lot of your mind, then you do something about it. But if it doesn't, then you make the decision to say, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and put it in the back burner and not really worry about it.
Like recycle bin.
Okay.
and just all delete, maybe. I mean, delete in the sense that they will not be available as a food for the mind to continuously chew about it. I mean, the information, once you have read or understood, it is going to be a part of your memory. So you will have that. You're not going to suddenly start feeling Alzheimer's. That is not going to happen. But it will not be so dominating on your mind that you're continuously thinking about it. So we should be able to collect information in that form. I mean, at this point, that's the only best choice I can see. If we are not on the other side, that's the only choice we have right now. Otherwise, the other choices, they are just like screwed up choices. They will just bring more misery to us. Vikram, do you have any thoughts on that?
No. Basically, I was thinking what is a thought, and then I kind of found the answer also. Thought is essentially it is articulation. I mean, at a generic level, it is natural. Prakriti creates that tendency. But suppose I am an English speaker, my thoughts will be in English. Somebody is Hindi speaker, their thought will be in Hindi.
Thoughts are just words, right? I mean, the information, the words, the meanings, the images, those form your thoughts. So
and they form your world afterwards. So it is, everybody's thoughts. I mean, the basic thing is the same, but when
I saw the difference. I used to be in India, and having lived in India so long, my thought process used to be in my my regional language, Marathi, or like if I'm hanging out too much with the Hindi speaking people, then probably it would be Hindi. But now, since I'm so exposed to English here in US, I realize that my thought process is also like the thoughts which come, they come in English.
me too, yeah.
So it's very difficult for me to think something in Hindi or Marathi or anything. It does not. But yeah, if I want to speak,
I can,
the memory will serve me, and I will be able to speak that language. But the day-to-day normal thought process, that is only in English most of the times. So as you choose to be which world you are going to be in, accordingly your thought process will also change. The kind of influences you are exposed to, your thought process is going to reflect all of that.
Yeah, and feelings are condensed thoughts. And also, Acharya was saying that, you talk about this. This is, I'm putting my condiments, namak mirchi also. What he was saying, that mind is basically material. It is padarth, just padarth. So when you say mind over matter, matter over mind, doesn't matter, because mind is matter.
Right.
Yeah. So that was my namak mirchi. Acharyaji didn't put it like that. That was I I created that. So this question itself is very irrelevant. What is, it doesn't matter whether mind is over matter or matter over mind. They are essentially the same thing.
Yeah, I remember in one of the satsangs, Acharyaji was saying that the scientists are trying to catch the wavelength of the thoughts, and the day is not far off when they would be able to interpret everything. What is like, it is like a code. So it is like encrypted code. So they would be able to decrypt that wavelength, and they would be able to tell, okay, what thoughts were going on in your head. So that day will come. We do not know whether it will be, but that is very much possible. Like physically, it is very much possible. So if it is physically very much possible, that means that if you are able to capture the thoughts, that means it is matter, right? It is matter.
Yeah. That is why they made this Minority Report movie. That is very real. It is entirely possible to interpret. I mean, as far as interpreting the dream part is concerned. And if you can understand, because in Prakriti, everything is pattern. So once you detect the pattern, then you can pretty much predict the future. I mean, future will only follow a pattern. So what is the big deal about it? Right. Okay. So we can begin chapter 4.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Shri Bhagwan. Okay, you read.
No, go ahead. Read.
Shri Bhagwan said, I revealed this immortal yoga to
Vivasana.
Vivaswan.
Vivaswan.
Sun God. Vivaswan
converted to Manu.
conveyed it to Manu, and Manu imparted it to his son Ikshvaku.
Ikshvaku.
Ikshvaku was the Ram was born in that clan Ikshvaku later. Ikshvaku once. So this I think it's not, there is nothing spiritual about this. It's just a
No, that it is just a historical. He is just remembering the legacy of this knowledge. Like it has gone through so many generations, like before him. So Krishna is just saying that when he is saying that he gave it to somebody, it is not that Krishna, the physical form Krishna was there. There was somebody as wise as Krishna who imparted this knowledge. So because all the wisdom is same, it does not matter whether it is coming from Krishna or Rama or from somebody else. But all the Brahma knowledge is same. He's saying that this knowledge was already given to so many different people in the past. So he's just now reiterating.
Thus, transmitted in succession from father to son, Arjuna, this yoga remains known to Raj Rishis, royal sages. Through long lapse of time, this yoga has got lost to the world. Now, why is capitalized? So they are talking of Brahma yoga, Brahma knowledge, right? Why is capitalized in this? So yoga means union with the Brahma in this sense. The same ancient yoga, which is the supreme secret, has this day been imparted to you by me. And M is capitalized, so by truth. Because you are my devotee and friend. So basically, because Arjun is interested in the truth and is benevolent towards the truth, so knowledge is reaching him.
He kind of got himself qualified to receive that knowledge.
So in other words, this is the qualification.
Devotee and friend.
Devotee and friend. Arjuna said, you are of recent origin, while the birth of Vishwasana, Vivaswan dates back to remote antiquity. How then am I to believe that you imparted this yoga at the beginning of the creation? So
yeah, the same thing like what we talked about.
We already
Arjun will obviously, when the moment I just pointed it out, right? When Krishna is saying me, he's talking about that, but Arjuna kind of like questioning that.
Yeah, I think the scheme that we follow, this should be small y, because Arjun is referring to Krishna in body form, not the truth.
Yeah, but
I mean, that is just
he cannot distinguish between that.
Right. Shri Bhagwan said, Arjuna, you and I have passed through many births. I remember them all. You do not remember, O chastiser of foes. Now, these are the verses which have been very, very wrongly interpreted by the priests and Brahmin. And this is the basis of, they say that like reincarnation, it has been totally so. Please.
So when he's saying Arjuna, you and I have passed through many births, he's actually meaning that in the ancient time also there were truth seekers like Arjuna, and there were sages or the wise men like like Krishna. So in that sense, he's saying, I remember them all. You do not remember. He remembers them all, O chastiser of foes. So he's saying, I remember them all. It does not mean that he remember a particular rishi or particular sage or things like that. Historically, some of the incidences are quoted and they are preserved, but there would be many incidences where there was no recording of it and they are not preserved. So Krishna possibly cannot, I mean, the Krishna in the body form possibly cannot remember all of them. He can only remember the ones which are preserved there. That's what it is. It's like there is an example in Buddha's discourses. There are examples. He's talking about his past lives. Buddha is talking about his past life. So in his past life, he used to be an elephant, and it has happened to him, something like that. So is he talking about a particular elephant, or he is talking about the tendency which has taken a form of elephant? So that is a deeper insight there. So he's talking about that tendency which has that big body, which has taken that form. He's talking about that. He's not talking about an named elephant or something like that. He's not talking about that. But the thing, somebody is, if receiving this information or knowledge, they kind of like translate it in their own form, that he's probably talking about a particular elephant, that he was a particular elephant where this particular incident has taken place. So in the same sense, he's talked about that he was a horse, or he was a deer, or he was something like that. So how he is talking about that the nature of the deer, the nature of the horse, that still exists in his mind somewhere. So where that tendency is coming from, that tendency which has taken the form of horse before, which has taken the form of deer before. He is not talking about a particular deer. He is talking about the tendency which likes to jump around, and that turns into deer. A tendency which likes to run wildly, and it takes the form of a horse. So that tendency of the mind still exists, and he's referring to that tendency. So if those tendencies are still inside me, so definitely at some point I have taken those forms also before. My consciousness has taken those forms also. So that is what he's trying to establish the link. But then people have interpreted in so many different ways, and then the actual intended meaning got lost.
Yeah, many birth means like, and I remember them all simply means that Krishna is conscious about all the tendencies that come up in, and you don't remember means you are not. So, for example, like O chastiser of foes, when Arjuna is fighting with the enemies, he is completely in the anger mode, or whatever mode he is. But Krishna is remembers, because it's just a tendency. Guno mein varatte hain. So like all these rajas, tamas, all these different gunas, they just kind of keep working, and he is aware of them. So he is aware of all the tendencies. Each tendency is a birth. So for example, once you become like very desirous of money, it can be said like a serpent sits on his own money. In India, they say, like, a person who dies, who is too much fond of money, then he becomes a serpent, and then he sits on the money that he has hidden. So, and like monkey, different. So for sloth also, you can have some sort of like, person who's always sleeping. Kumbhkarn is also kind of so these are all symbolisms.
These are like symbolic stories only. I mean, He is not talking about a particular incident which has happened. Now, for the understanding of the people who are listening to him, he's given some examples. Not necessarily that example has happened or something like that has happened, and that he's remembering that particular incident. No, it is not like that. Just for him, for anybody to understand, he has given some examples, like some stories. Buddha has given some stories, and if you just go through those stories, and those stories are called jatak kathaएं. Jatak kathaएं, those stories are called. So if you go through the story, you will feel like, oh, Buddha was like this, he was like that. Oh, he is actually referring to that tendency, and to explain that tendency, he has given a story for you, because it is very easy to remember the story. And with the story, the reference is the tendency. Okay, that kind of tendency he was a part of, and that kind of tendency he was a part of. Like, because those tendencies still exist. Buddha is not free of tendencies. The tendencies are there. He does not act on them. He has got a complete discipline of his mind that he does not act on them. Those tendencies do not control him. He's free of those tendencies in that sense. But the tendencies will always arise, and that is the nature of physical body. The tendencies will never stop. The mind would always race. The mind would always jump. The mind would always do all sort of things. But then there is something within which chooses not to get identified with those processes. That point he's talking about, that point, one has to get to that point where mind is doing all kind of things, but the point is just in the awareness mode. Mind is just working tirelessly, but the thing is, it does not bother. It does not create any chaos. Go ahead, Vikramji.
Though birthless and immortal and the Lord of all beings, I manifest myself through my own Yog Maya, divine potency, keeping my nature, Prakriti, under control.
Yeah. So Prakriti is actually emerged from the self only. And when he is saying I myself, he's talking about the self. I myself means he's talking about the self only. The eternal, immortal self he's talking about. He's not talking about, you can give it the Krishna's name, but he's not talking about an individual's self or anything like that. He's talking about the universal self. So everything is emerging from that self. He's given the name Yoga Maya, with his divine potency, and it is emerging in the form of Prakriti. And Prakriti is under the control of self. That's what he's talking about. So though birthless and immortal and the Lord of all beings, I manifest myself through my own Yoga Maya. So all these forms you see around us are the manifestation of the single self, or maybe one self, or because it's the only self. Actually, you can't even say one. That is why the word Advait is there, non-dual. It is not two. It does not mean that it is one, because it is the only one that only exists. And from that self only, all these different forms are coming into existence. That's what he's trying to say here.
Keeping my nature, Prakriti, under control. Why control?
Under control means under the Prakriti also has a design, right? Prakriti also has a, you can say, a program. Prakriti is like a program, just like a gravitational force. It is kind of an equation. So gravitational force, what you are experiencing there, I'm also experiencing the same. So it is the same program. So Prakriti is just a program that, okay, in this Prakriti, there are certain actions which will have the certain responses or reactions, or those actions will have what you call it, reactions, equal and opposite reactions. So that design itself is a control, right? And that design is it already exists. That design already exists. So he's just giving the name to that design, that okay, that design is my manifestation. That is why it is under my control. It is under the control of the self. Any confusion on that?
So I'm just putting this in a different context. So Krishna, the truth, the moment becomes manifests as Krishna, the person is Prakriti.
Yeah, person is actually, the person came into existence because of the Prakriti.
Prakriti, correct. So
and Prakriti is a design by the self.
Correct. So the moment, like in quantum mechanics, the moment an observer is there, the particle and wave nature, which existed everywhere and anywhere, suddenly the observation makes the change. The moment you observe, suddenly the particle behavior becomes prominent, or wave becomes prominent. It is like a ball in a basketball court. It's everywhere. The moment you see it,
Right.
it suddenly becomes it manifests at one place. That manifestation is Prakriti. And the observer, the moment you see it, suddenly it kind of everything, like the fact of observation is creating the world and the Prakriti. Quantum mechanics is very close. If you
Yeah, it's very
about
close.
it, is very spiritual. It is right there.
Yeah.
It's almost, that theory is actually spiritual.
Right. I think it changes the path.
Yeah.
The moment the observer comes
Correct.
into existence. Yeah.
Correct. I mean, the path, as long as you are not observing,
Yeah, it is going.
it is everywhere, it is nowhere.
Yeah.
But the moment you observe, though, that slit experiment.
Yeah. I mean, it does not matter whether that observation is done by a physical person or even by a camera.
Anything here, the moment you observe, it changes. The behavior is changed.
It changes. So
That consciousness, I think it is that.
Yeah. So we do not know how that happens.
Yeah.
What is actually making it to change the path?
Yeah.
So the observation itself is actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Observation is affecting it.
Observation is affecting it. That is exactly right.
So that is when the first time I read that theory, I was like mind blown. I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell is this?
That is my favorite. That is my favorite show. Lina doesn't like it so much, but whenever I get time, I just open that quantum mechanics.
Oh, Lina doesn't like it. Why? Because you actually bore her.
Lina is polite. Lina is the politest person. She will bear it, even if she's not liking.
Oh, maybe you have repeated that so many times. So
I repeated myself many times. It's just my favorite show. I will probably repeat it today again.
Probably.
I like quantum mechanics, but it's not really in my realm of like, oh, let me get excited about quantum mechanics. I have my things, he has his things, but I'm like, I will listen and I will try to understand as best I can. But again, science and me have kind of parted ways maybe some time back, but again, doesn't mean I don't enjoy it and or read it and or appreciate it.
This part of the science is actually very close to spirituality, and that's why we are kind of like talking about it. And I agree with Vikramji, because I have also spent a lot on that theory. And yeah, I mean, it's very fascinating.
Very fascinating.
I don't think even scientists know the reason, and I don't think anybody can find that reason. That is something which is like beyond the grasp of humans.
Yes.
Which I do think that some things should kind of remain outside our grasp, because
Mystery.
when we kind of start playing that sort of role, then
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel disaster, you know.
Right. Yeah.
That is mysticism. Yes.
Right. That is mysticism.
Oh, ho, ho. This is Yada Yada. Oh, this is, by the way, this is the most famous, most repeated in so many ways. Yada Yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavatu bharata. So Arjuna, whenever righteousness is on the decline, unrighteousness
Is
is
in the ascendant.
ascendant, then I body myself forth. Alok ji, aap isko please explain this in all detail, because this is mostly used and never understood. It's very much repeated and nobody understands.
So it is just like a balance, actually. He's talking about the balance. So whenever there is the righteousness in the society or in the collective consciousness, when there is a decline of righteousness, automatically what is going to happen if one part of the balance goes down, automatically the other part of the balance is going to go up. So if the righteousness is gone down, obviously we know that unrighteousness has gone on top now. So he's saying that unrighteousness, whenever that sort of thing happens, then it is just a nature of Prakriti. To restore the balance back again, it automatically creates a phenomenon. And that is what he's talking about, that I body myself forth. So it is not necessarily the Krishna with all the powers and everything will come into existence, but something with tremendous righteousness will appear from nowhere, and Prakriti will just bring it again to restore that balance. So that is actually happening. So when he's saying then I body myself forth, he's not talking about a particular individual who come with other Sudarshan Chakra or something like that. He's not talking about that. He's talking about the embodiment of righteousness will appear, be it in any form. In different times, he will be in different form. In those times, he was he came into existence as a warrior. But in our times, probably he will come in the form of shirt and pant. So, but he will be the embodiment of that righteousness. So that is what it is, and it automatically happens because of the balance, because the divine nature or the control, or you can say uh, the balance of the equation is such that if something like if you all of us, we have studied organic chemistry, right? So in the organic chemistry, there is some kind of electronic deficiency or something like that. So automatically there will be one proton coming. It is just to balance the equation. So this righteousness and unrighteousness, they just go hand in hand. You can say that when there is tremendous unrighteousness, know for sure that there is going to be an embodiment of righteousness which is soon going to appear. And it goes back in the age of Christ also. There was so much of unrighteousness in that time. So Christ appeared in a most ordinary form. He just appeared, but he was the embodiment of righteousness. He was nothing like Krishna, but he was perfectly the right fit for that society, for that particular collective consciousness. So it will appear in different times, in different forms, but since it is the embodiment of righteousness, that is why Krishna is calling it I body myself. So it's the same self in its highest potential of consciousness, you can say. It will appear to balance that. And That's the way it is. That's the cycle of Prakriti, or that's the equation.
So, and this applies the opposite. Whenever unrighteousness is on the decline, righteousness is in the ascendant, right? It switches, right? Okay.
Osho has, I was listening to that, it is on my phone. He said there has never been a time in the entire human history when the righteousness was not on decline. So righteousness is always on decline, unrighteousness is always on ascendant. Then why is not Krishna being born all the time? And then
it's not Krishna, right? I mean, there will be some embodiment of righteousness in different times, different sages, different rishis, different in a small town like Kashi, those times it was Saint Kabir, right? In Maharashtra, the state where I have come from, there were so many different saints. In Punjab, it was Guru Nanak. There were so many, there will always be some representative of righteousness. They will always come. So wherever there is extreme darkness, there will be a ray of light. It will appear. And extreme darkness is such a magnetic force, it will attract the light. The light will appear. And we would not be able to point out where and how it came, but it is the law of the nature. And that is, he's only reiterating that law of nature, that it is going to happen.
Well, that's a comforting thought.
Yeah.
You said collective consciousness.
I'm talking about group of people. Maybe it could be a country, it could be a big city or town, or it could be, I mean, I'm just talking about a group of people. So in one part, so every, like different times you see, like there were so many saints in Maharashtra at the same time, but they were not operating in the same city. They were operating in different parts of that state. And at the same time in South India, there were different kind of saints, different kind of people. Like, so that's why I'm just that the sample size I'm talking about as a collective consciousness of one particular rishi in a one particular area. In that particular area, whatever number of people are there, few thousands or few millions, that represent that collective consciousness.
So from Advait, I mean, from Advait perspective, collective consciousness, how can consciousness can have gradations and levels, and consciousness is at the consciousness and truth are one, right? At the in the purest form, or are they different?
We are talking about the jivatmas only.
Okay.
We are talking about jivatmas only.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Jivatma, from Jivatma perspective, there is like 1% consciousness, honestly. I mean, the only the only Jivatmas asking this question, who am I? That is the only sign of consciousness. Otherwise, it is all just Prakriti, and it is all just patterns. And the only time that you ask a question, who am I? That is the only ray of consciousness.
I mean, you can look at it from that perspective, that okay, there is a ocean, there's a big ocean, and I have put a pot in that ocean, and I have collected some sample water from that ocean now, from one particular side. So that sample water is a collective consciousness. You can say, because it has all the droplets of that ocean. All those drops collectively they form that particular sample size. I'm talking about that.
Correct.
Don't look too much beyond that.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the protection of the virtuous, for the extirpation of evildoers, extermination perhaps,
Yeah, kind of.
and for establishing of dharma, the righteousness on a firm footing, I manifest myself from age to age.
It's a comforting thought for Arjun.
Yeah.
Krishna is kind of like cajoling him, kind of giving him a hope that I am by your side. So yeah, don't lose your hope. Any question till this point?
It's getting interesting.
So this dharma is as in righteousness. This is not the dharma, actual dharma. I mean, this is satogun. Basically, it is satogun, righteousness. It's not talking of the nirakar truth.
Yeah, we can say that. I mean, Sattva Gun itself is a recipe for the Nirakar. You have get to the point of Sattva Gun. You cannot directly take a jump from tamas to Nirakar. This is from tamas you have to get to the rajas, and rajas, from rajas you have to get to the sattva. So in that sense.
Yeah.
And Nirakar is not available to everybody.
Correct. So to take the example further that you were saying, and that we see in our own mind also. In fact, manifestation of that does not happen outside. It happens in our, for example, when you become too possessive, too angry, too ambitious, we have this thought come that what is the point? And this compassion, like when we become too cruel, then there is always a ray of thought of some compassion. That ray of thought is righteousness.
Yeah.
So the manifestation of myself from age to age, honestly, it can be also from moment to moment.
Oh yeah.
Like if somebody is ready to kill someone, and right at that moment, when everything has been set, when the trigger has to be pulled, at that time he suddenly feels that ray of compassion. That is what Arjun was also.
You can flip it in that sense also, where you are not thinking about a microcosm, or like you're not even thinking about the collective consciousness, or a group of people, or a nation, or a state, or a town, or something like that. Think about one person. He himself is an entire globe. One person goes through, he has Krishna also, he has Arjun also within him. And he also has Duryodhan also, and he also has Bhishma and Karna and everybody within him. So from that perspective, moment to moment, you are choosing. In this moment, you are chosen to be a Karna. In the other moment, you are chosen to be a Arjun. How many? You always have a choice to be close to Krishna. So from that perspective also, when you are saying moment to moment, for if you take an example of a person's journey, he also has the choice whether he wants to be closer to Krishna, whether he chooses to be a truth seeker like Arjuna, or he chooses to be somebody who is lost in darkness like Duryodhana. That choice is always available to us, moment to moment. So this whole thing, probably if we take it to ourselves, it is even more beneficial. Instead of projecting it to particular part of the world or some group of people, or you can take it for yourself, and then it becomes even more effective, or you can say it becomes even more meaningful. Saying I manifest myself from age to age. Yeah, age to age, and now you are said it is moment to moment. Yeah, I mean, I would not have come up with this example if you had not said moment to moment.
Mm.
So you said moment to moment, so that's why I had to bring in this example. Okay, all right. If you are talking about moment to moment, just let's take the arrow to ourselves now.
Because it's a birth. Like once you give in to one tendency,
Yeah.
then you are living that role.
Mhm.
And until that cycle is complete, that is almost like a birth. Like I become very ambitious, and I set this worldly target, I have to achieve this, that. Now you have chosen a role of that birth. You have you have given yourself a birth.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I want to secure admission in IIT. So that 2-3 years you have defined yourself as a particular role. Now you will ultimately, that is an age for you, that is a birth for you. It will culminate into something.
Mhm. Yeah.
Arjuna, my birth and activities are divine. He who knows this in reality is not reborn on leaving his body, but comes to me.
It has a very deeper meaning than just the mere the words. It has a very deep meaning in that sense, that it is just an understanding of the self. If somebody has reached to the point where he understands the self, that he is not a puppet of the Prakriti. His real nature is vast and eternal. If he gets to that point, definitely there is no birth, because those tendencies, no birth for that person again. That, or maybe that you can say Jivatma. That Jivatma has completely transformed it. It has emptied it completely. Now the consciousness has become awareness. The consciousness has turned itself into awareness. Consciousness is consciousness as long as there are the variables of the world within. Those variables, as long as they exist, the consciousness is consciousness. But the consciousness becomes super consciousness or awareness when those variables do not exist anymore. So when it comes to that point, then the I self or the myself turn into the universal self. They just become one. Your myself gets, or I self gets transformed into universal self. That means it is no self. And I'm saying universal self, which it belongs to everybody, that means it does not belong to anybody. There is no tiny fragment which is holding on to that universal self. Now the universal self is available and at service to everything what is happening in this cosmic world. Any doubt on that?
I think these 9 and 10 we can contemplate more. I mean, 10 we can take, and then we start next time from the 9 and 10 again, because they are very deep.
Yeah, they are very deep. I guess guys can sleep over it.
Yes, I think. क्योंकि इसमें, I mean, what is there that will be reborn? The question is, reborn कौन? You know, who? If you
Reborn
are
is always the Prakriti is reborn.
only ego, right?
Yeah, central eye tendency.
Central eye tendencies. So if you are not attached to central eye tendency, then who is there to die or to reborn? Even, I mean, death is also impossible, right? Because whatever can die is already dead, actually.
Yeah.
Mind is material, matter is mind,
Right.
and matter is dead. So mind is dead. We are already dead. Whatever you can feel and touch and see, and this is just, it is not alive from that perspective. So there is no question of dying. It is already dead. Krishna says buddhi, mind is mitti. It's mud.
I just remember one example. I mean, because you are now taking a deep dive in the deep waters, so I can quote that example from Acharya. He's talked about this. So he's talked about self and Prakriti like parallelly. So Prakriti, when you go back and back and back and back, Prakriti also does not have any birth. Like in a sense, the central eye tendency, it is birthless. In that sense, truth is also birthless. Truth is timeless actually. Prakriti is birthless. Prakriti always exists. Since the beginning of the time, Prakriti exists. But truth is always going to remain. Prakriti ends. That is something we always miss out. We think like, okay, if some body has fallen, that means now the central eye tendency is going to take another form. It is going to take another form from this body only if this body at the time of death has fallen with lot of unfulfilled desires. If it has fallen with lot of unfulfilled desires, it gives the momentum to the central tendency to carry on and then get attached to something other, some other object. But the Buddha's body, there is no momentum given. The wheel has totally stopped. In Buddha's body, the wheel has totally stopped. So central eye tendency is not a central eye tendency anymore. It has got submerged into the universal. It has totally got, like, it has disappeared now. So that is why there is no progression. Yeah, I mean the physical nature, whatever you can say, the body, the physical, the matter, that will get transformed. The body will turn into ash, and then from that ash some other a plant will come or something will happen, some sapling will arise. That is all going to happen. But on the consciousness level, Prakriti level, nothing is going to go forward. So in that sense, he's saying that he is not born on leaving his body, because no central eye tendency is going to be perpetuated after the falling of the body happens. For the one who has realized Krishna, or who have realized self in their lifetime. So there is an end for Prakriti, but they both have no birth. Prakriti has no birth and truth also has no birth. But truth is eternal and Prakriti has the end. And it happens in some bodies it happens, and in some bodies it does not happen. The central eye tendency just keeps getting perpetuated. Think about that more.
But every time it happens, Prakriti has perfected the art of now creating a better specimen.
Yeah.
So it is happening because Prakriti is learning from us. How will Prakriti learn?
Yeah.
I mean, Prakriti has got some patterns, but Prakriti also wants to basically get sublimated. And
Exactly.
how will it get sublimated?
Prakriti is also driving itself towards its perfection. But the perfection will not come. And perfection for such a large sample specimens is not going to happen. Maybe millions of years. Who knows? So, but that is what I'm saying, and just to explain that part, that in reality is not reborn on leaving his body. What is not reborn? That central eye tendency is not reborn again, at least for that body. Central eye tendency on a prakritic level, on the cosmic level, it always going to exist. It was there, it is going to, but particularly for this, that this specimen, that thing is not carried forward. It just got, maybe you can say that he has not left the central eye tendency with any kind of momentum at the time of his death. So it cannot carry forward, or it cannot get itself attached. It does not even have the firepower of any desire. So it cannot get attached to anything. Yeah, I mean, we can only contemplate, or maybe on a thought level only we can understand this. But just to make sense of what he said. Does it make sense, or it is totally nonsense theory?
No, it does make sense.
Because I remember Acharya quoting this example, like, okay, he talked about, and I was like surprised how Prakriti does not have any birth. So I was thinking, but then he said like Prakriti has the end, and it is your choice whether the Prakriti is going to end in your lifetime. If it is not, then see, those patterns will happen, keep on happening, but those patterns to continue, they need to have some kind of ammunition, and that ammunition comes from central eye tendency. If that ammunition is not there, those patterns cannot carry forward by themselves. And most of the people, they keep providing that ammunition to those patterns. So that's how the wheel keeps on spinning. It never stops. For Buddha, the wheel stops. That is why he's out of the cycle. That is why the words such as, okay, he's not going to reborn on leaving his body. Those kind of words are there. You are sitting nicely on the beach, so you can.
And you didn't invite us, so how dare you?
So you have a lot of time, and looks like you have a nice sunny daylight. So you have a lot of time to
reflect on
this.
Yes, indeed. I forgot now how I created that space in the front. I forget now how.
Those 3 dots, and it says virtual background, and then you can choose
Somewhere, yeah, but I'm not able to see it now.
Oh,
I
Used
mean,
to be.
we do that all the time in the Teams. I don't know that same
Yeah.
option is available in Zoom.
Yeah, it is somewhat like that. Anyways, no worries. I will. It's okay. It's not a bad. I actually was yesterday. Today is Sunday. Yeah, Saturday. Yes, yesterday I was participating in that. Oh, day before yesterday, Thursday actually, for 2.5 hours for that faculty senate meeting.
Oh.
I went on and on and on. So I chose this background.
Hmm.
And ever since, that background has been there. So okay.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was, because the weather these days is particularly nice actually. So this is like celebrating the weather. Today was beautiful day.
What's the
So,
temperature there?
70 degrees.
Oh, 70. Really
70.
nice weather.
Today
I
it
mean,
will be,
we are getting that weather only in the morning, but then again it turns to 90.
no, today it will fall down to 40. Today morning it was 48 or something. Right now is I think it is not even 70 now. It is fallen down to 59. 59 degrees.
yeah, here it's 72, but it's only going to get down to 63.
So today it will fall to 46, tomorrow 48, on Tuesday 50. So we have cold weather, like we're very coldish. I mean, you have to have a jacket to go outside. That cold, yeah.
We suppose by Halloween we will get some cold, but
Yeah.
right now it is 77.
Halloween will be much colder.
Yeah.
Tina is planning to visit 20 next in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
You guys will
just for the
have
weather.
some kind of vacation also, right? Around that time.
Yeah. She
Later
loves
on.
this weather. And I hope
Anissa probably will have a couple of days. I'm not sure. Or maybe
my
Awesome.
plan, if she comes, then can stay longer, perhaps. That
it's
will
not.
be-
It is still not work from home. I mean, it's always going to office.
I hope something happens and then he can stay. Last time she did that. She stayed November, December, came around this time.
Well, it's because we were doing remote work, but now we're required to be on campus and all that. So kind of harder.
But
But you never know.
I think you will get the Christmas vacation, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
And also the Thanksgiving a little bit, or no?
Yes, about a week.
Oh, about a week.
Mhm. Well, I mean, 4 days, because we teach at least 2 days, Monday, Tuesday, and then the rest of the week is off.
Right.
3, 4 days, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good. So we will repeat 9 and 10, and maybe you can write it. I think this is chapter 4 now.
Chapter 4, 9. Yeah. I'm recording. I will save this as chapter 4, 9. That will be the where we stopped. Until chapter 4, 9, so to speak. 1 to 9, something like that.
Yeah, we'll reflect on this more next week.
This needs a lot of reflection.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.
All right.
Good night. Bye, Nisa.
Bye.
Goodbye. Okay, bye.
Good night.